Girivaradhari. Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradhari. Yashodanandana Prajajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Prajajana Ranjana. Yamunatira Vanachari. Yamunatira Vanachari. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Mishnapad Paramahansa Parujaka-charya Ashtottara Shri Srimad, His Divine Grace Srila HG Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivajaka-charya Ashtottara Shri Srimad, His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananda Koti Vaishnavinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavad Gita Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glory to Shri Guru and Gauranga. So you put this thing exactly where we were ready to start. Okay. Thought so. That's very convenient. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. On the 17th day of February 2025 in San Diego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And we are in the introduction on page 9, second paragraph. This is, of course, also the glorious appearance day of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. Okay. The position of Ishvara, the Supreme Lord, is that of supreme consciousness. The jivas, or the living entities, being parts and parcels of the Supreme Lord, are also conscious. Both the living entity and material nature are explained as Prakriti, the energy of the Supreme Lord, But one of the two, the jiva, is conscious. The other prakriti is not conscious. That is the difference. Therefore, the jiva prakriti is called superior, because the jiva has consciousness which is similar to the Lord's. The Lord's is supreme consciousness, however, and one should not claim that the jiva, the living entity, is also supremely conscious. The living being cannot be supremely conscious at any stage of his perfection, and the theory that he can be so is a misleading theory. Conscious he may be, but he is not perfectly or supremely conscious. The distinction between the jiva and the Ishvara will be explained in the 13th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. The Lord is kṣetra-jña, conscious, as is the living being, but the living being is conscious of his particular body, whereas the Lord is conscious of all bodies. Because he lives in the heart of every living being, he is conscious of the psychic movements of the particular jivas. We should not forget this. It is also explained that the Paramatma, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is living in everyone's heart as the Ishvara, as the controller, and that he is giving directions for the living entity to act as he desires. The living entity forgets what to do. First of all, he makes a determination to act in a certain way, and then he is entangled in the actions and reactions of his own karma. After giving up one type of body, he enters another type of body, as we take off and put on clothes. As the soul thus migrates, he suffers the actions and reactions of his past activities. These activities can be changed when the living being is in the mode of goodness, in space, sanity, sorry, and understands what sort of activities he should adopt. If he does so, then all the actions and reactions of his past activities can be changed. Consequently, karma is not eternal. Therefore, we stated that the 5 items, Ishvara, Jiva, Prakriti, Time, and Karma, of the 5 items of Ishvara, Jiva, Prakriti, Time, and Karma, 4 are eternal, whereas karma is not eternal. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshu Unmilitam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. All right. I think all of us were here last class, right? Okay. So who can remember what the 5 topics of the Bhagavad Gita are? Do you remember, Mahima? Do you remember any of them? Prabhupada was just talking about 4 of them. 5.
Who we really are.
Yeah, but they're just different items. The first is the Ishvara, the Lord, then the Jiva, the individual soul, then Prakriti, nature, then Karma, and Kala. Kala is time. Now, out of those 5, 4 are eternal. Which one is not eternal? Karma. Karma can be eradicated. I mean, karma has different meanings. Karma can just mean activity, but it mostly means fruit of activity. Activity that produces a fruit, either bitter or sweet. Usually, and also karma can mean in a certain context activity according to the Vedas. Not necessarily bhakti, but it can be according to the karma kanda section of the Vedas, which teaches how to act in such a way as you can go to heaven. It's still a material world, but it's very pious activity, and you enjoy like that. So that's karma activity, and it has an ending. In other words, you do something, and then it will produce a certain result. If karma is in the realm of fruit of activity, there will be a reaction. Now it can be a sweet result, a sweet fruit, if you will, or a bitter fruit, depending on how far away it is from following the laws of God, which include the Vedas and include pious activity also. But if it's just completely selfish activity, simply for sense gratification, then you're ensuring suffering. You're going to get punished afterward, depending on mostly how much you hurt other people or other living entities, So that's a nice way of understanding the Gita. And without understanding, first of all, that there is a God, what to speak of knowing about him, but without that, you can see how your life, it's ungrounded, and you're sure to perform sinful activities and suffer. That's the fact. So it's interesting. You have these 5 topics, and then Krishna will explain them. And of course, he will explain very clearly how one can act in order to have the best future, both in this life and the next. That's what the book is all about. Okay, so second paragraph from page 9? Okay. Third paragraph. You sure? Yes. The living being cannot be supremely conscious in any stage of its perfection. We read that, right? Or did we? Yes. The distinction between the Jiva and the Ishvara will be explained in the 13th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. I think we read that one too. All right, I'm going to do better then. Yes. The supreme conscious Ishvara is similar to the living entity in this way. Both the consciousness of the Lord and that of the living entity are transcendental. It is not that consciousness is generated by the association of matter. That is a mistaken idea. The theory that consciousness develops under certain circumstances of material combination is not accepted in the Bhagavad Gita. Consciousness may be pervertedly reflected by the covering of material circumstances, just as light reflected through colored glass may appear to be a certain color. But the consciousness of the Lord is not materially affected. Lord Krishna says, Maya kṣetra-jña prakriti. When he descends into the material universe, his consciousness is not materially affected. If he were so affected, he would be unfit to speak on transcendental matters, as he does in the Bhagavad Gita. Now, Maya kṣetra-jña prakriti means that this whole material energy is working under my supervision. The word aksha means eyes, Maya kṣetra-jña prakriti. So, therefore, he can't be affected by prakriti. One cannot say anything about the transcendental world without being free from materially contaminated consciousness. So the Lord is not materially contaminated. Our consciousness at the present moment, however, is materially contaminated. The Bhagavad Gita teaches that we have to purify this materially contaminated consciousness. In pure consciousness, our actions will be dovetailed to the will of the Ishvara, and that will make us happy. It is not that we have to cease all activities. Rather, our activities are to be purified, and purified activities are called bhakti. Activities in bhakti appear to be like ordinary activities, but they are not contaminated. An ignorant person may see that a devotee is acting or working like an ordinary man, but such a person with a poor fund of knowledge does not know that the activities of the devotee or of the Lord are not contaminated by impure consciousness or matter. They are transcendental to the 3 modes of nature. We should know, however, that at this point our consciousness is contaminated. So, in bhakti, the whole enterprise really revolves around why you're doing something, your motive for doing something. We talk about, in this second chapter, first canto, which I quote quite often, what is real dharma? And we have this line, ahoit kiya pratayataya amasupasidati. So that is real dharma. Savai pung sang paro dharma, yato bhakti radhokshije. That is real dharma, which engenders bhakti in the person who performs the activity of the dharma. That's the whole idea. And how can that practice become completely pleasing or supersedity? This was the question. In other words, how can we act in this world so we can become supremely happy? That's a worthy question. That was the question that the sages in Naimisharanya posed to Sutta Goswami, the speaker of the Bhagavatam. And this is his answer, is that Dharma which increases your bhakti to adhokshaja. Adhokshaja, anyone remember what that name means? It's a name for Krishna. Adhokshaja. You know what akshas are? Aksha? Eyes. Ja is short for janma, birth. So what is born from the use of the eyes and other senses without any reference to bhakti? In other words, this is an ascending process. That knowledge is fallible. It can't approach the transcendent Lord. So Adhokshaja is a name for God, which simply means He who is beyond the reach of our mind and our senses. And this is one of the first phrases I learned when I came to Avan Manasa Gochara. Gochara means within the realm, within the reach. Okay? And Van is because of the sandhi, is vak, the words. Between your words and your mind. We try to understand by hearing words and speaking words and using our mind to figure. This is material acquisition of knowledge. So that's Van Manasa. But here it says, Avan Manasa Gochara, beyond the realm or the reach of mundane words and thought. That's Krishna, at Hokshaja. So how do we understand Him? The only way that we can understand anything about it is when He reveals us to us. If He sees our eagerness, He sees that we're approaching someone who knows, who is a proper medium for revealing to us the knowledge of how to see, then Krishna becomes pleased and He reveals more and more. Because don't forget, He's in our hearts. He can reveal whatever He wants. So that's the way of knowing, Bhadvan Manasa Gochara. And otherwise we remain bound within the realm of the material use of these senses. And this word, a certain word, unmotivated, which has to be understood. Unmotivated is really not such a good term for pure bhakti, because it's definitely motivated. It's just not materially motivated. There has to be some motivation for anything we do, right? Greed can be a motivation. Greed is good if it's greed for Krishna. There's a famous verse like that. This is composed by Ramananda Roy and included by Rupa Goswami in his Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. He quotes a lot of other sources. So this verse has a very special place in the, how shall I say it, the universe of verses. Hey, that's pretty good. Write that one down. So here's the verse. Krishna bhakti rasa bhavitamati kriyatam yadikutopi labhyate tatta laulyam api mulyam ekalam janmakoti sukutayana labhyate. You've heard this one before. So what he's saying there is Krishna, this is the first line of this verse, Prabhupada translated as Krishna consciousness. So Krishna bhakti rasa bhavitamati. Every word counts. So Krishna bhakti, okay, we understand devotion to Krishna. Rasa, the mellow, the nectar of the relationship with Krishna. Bhavitamati means your mind absorbed in Krishna bhakti rasa, in enjoying the relationship with Krishna with all of the varieties, you see. That is the ultimate. And if you can buy that somewhere, in Costco, maybe Home Depot, you should buy it. You got to have the right price. So Krishna Bhakti is a bhavata. Kriyatam, you should buy it. Yadi kutopi labhyate. If you can find it, you should buy it, But you have to have the price. And what's the price? Tatra laulyam api mulyam. Mulyam means price. And the price is greed. Your own eagerness for it. That's the price, you see. Mulyam ekalam, the only price. And then he says, Janmakoti sukatana labhyate. You may practice many, many millions of births of pious activity. And you may get to heaven, but you're not going to get the Krishna Bhakti Rasa Bhavatamati. So that's not where it's at. Greed means your ego desire for it, and then to be in the contact of an acharya and the books and everything that can give you the knowledge and the instruction how you can proceed. And you have to be determined, because there's pitfalls and there's all kinds of challenges. But that's the idea. So, I just wanted to share that with you. And I forgot why we got into that, but it doesn't matter. Where were we? Second paragraph of page 10. Okay. The Supreme Conscious, the Supreme Conscious Ishwar is similar to the living entity in this way. Both the consciousness of the Lord and that of the living entity are transcendental. It is not that consciousness is generated by the association of matter. That is a mistaken idea. The theory that consciousness develops under certain circumstances of material combination is not accepted in Bhagavad Gita. Consciousness may be pervertedly reflected by the covering of material circumstances, just as light reflected through colored glass, or we may say refracted. Maybe we should fix that. Just as light, well, here he says, all right. Reflected or refracted through colored glass may appear to be a certain color. But the consciousness of the Lord is not materially affected. Lord Krishna said, we read that, Maya Jakshina Prakriti. All right, next paragraph. When we are materially contaminated, that's it, it's contamination. When we are materially contaminated, we are called conditioned. False consciousness is exhibited under the impression that I am a product of material nature. This is called false ego. One who is absorbed in the thought of bodily conceptions cannot understand his situation. The Bhagavad Gita was spoken to liberate one from the bodily conception of life, and Arjuna put himself in this position in order to receive this information from the Lord. One must become free from the bodily conception of life. That is the preliminary activity for the transcendentalist. One who wants to become free, who wants to become liberated, must first of all learn that he is not the material body. Mukti, or liberation, means freedom from material consciousness. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, also, the definition of liberation is given, Mukti hidvanyata rupam swarupena vyavastitihi. Mukti means liberation from the contaminated consciousness of this material world and being situated in pure consciousness. All the instructions of the Bhagavad Gita are intended to awaken this pure consciousness. And therefore we find at the last stage of the Gita's instructions that Krishna is asking Arjuna whether he is now in purified consciousness. Purified consciousness means acting in accordance with the instructions of the Lord. This is the whole sum and substance of purified consciousness. Consciousness is already there because we are part and parcel of the Lord. But for us, there is the affinity of being affected by the inferior modes. But the Lord, being the Supreme, is never affected. That is the difference between the Supreme Lord and the small individual souls. What is this consciousness? This consciousness is, I am. Then what am I? In contaminated consciousness, I am means I am the Lord of all I survey. I am the enjoyer. The world revolves because every living being thinks that he is the Lord and creator of the material world. Material consciousness has two psychic divisions. One is that I am the creator, and the other is that I am the enjoyer. But actually the Supreme Lord is both the creator and the enjoyer, and the living entity, being part and parcel of the Supreme Lord, is neither the creator nor the enjoyer, but a cooperator. He is the created and the enjoyed. For instance, a part of a machine cooperates with the whole machine. A part of the body cooperates with the whole body. The hands, legs, eyes, and so on are all parts of the body, but they are not actually the enjoyers. The stomach is the enjoyer. The legs move, the hands supply food, the teeth chew, and all parts of the body are engaged in satisfying the stomach, because the stomach is the principal factor that nourishes the body's organization. Therefore, everything is given to the stomach. One nourishes the tree by watering its root, and one nourishes the body by feeding the stomach. For if the body is to be kept in a healthy state, then the parts of the body must cooperate to feed the stomach. Similarly, the Supreme Lord is the enjoyer and the creator, and we, as subordinate living beings, are meant to cooperate to satisfy him. This cooperation will actually help us, just as food taken by the stomach will help all other parts of the body. If the fingers of the hand think that they should take the food themselves instead of giving it to the stomach, then they will be frustrated. The central figure of creation and of enjoyment is the Supreme Lord, and the living entities are cooperators. By cooperation, they enjoy. The relation is also like that of the master and the servant. If the master is fully satisfied, then his servant is satisfied. Similarly, the Supreme Lord should be satisfied, although the tendency to become the creator and the tendency to enjoy the material world are there also in the living entities, because these tendencies are there in the Supreme Lord who has created the manifested cosmic world. So one point, I'm going to keep my finger here on this paragraph so I can't. Okay, so in the Vedanta Sutra, there's this little sutra, which is a little aphorism, Anandamaya Bhyasat. Who can say what that means? You know what it means. Anandamaya? Huh? Yeah, Anandamaya means full of bliss, made of bliss, full of bliss. And Abhyasat, it's not so obvious what it means. It means we can see, we can tell by the Lord's activities. Abhyas is like practice. And see, his pastimes, how he's always blissful, you see. Now, we are part and parcel of the Lord. So why aren't we always blissful? Because we've denied our actual nature, you see. We can be blissful when we take part in the Lord's bliss. And his bliss is infinite. So if we really attune ourselves and become completely conscious of Krishna, then we can be blissful all the time. Even in circumstances that would ordinarily be anything but blissful. The extreme example is someone like Haridas Thakur. There's this pastime. I mean, it's just hair-raising. But this was during, Lord Chaitanya lived during the Muslim rule of India. And it was horrific things going on. They were persecuting the Hindus like anything, and all stuff. So then they would convert, sword in one hand, Quran in the other, believe the book, or boom, you choose. Yes, Allah is great. I agree. Right? Isn't this what the millions? So Haridas Thakur, he was born in a Muslim family, but he became Haridas Thakur. He became the Acharya, Namacharya, because all he wanted to do was chant. I mean, try to just conceive of what it's like. We had trouble finishing our rounds early. 16 rounds. But he was chanting 192 rounds a day. That is, how much? 12 times. Imagine going through the 16 rounds. Say, well, I only have 11 times more to go. Could we even conceive of that? So that was, if you chant 5 minutes, I once figured it out. If you chant 5 minutes a round, which is pretty fast, it's like 3 minutes a mantra. Or 3 seconds a mantra. Anyway. So if you do, then it's still 12 hours, 16 hours of chanting. Okay. So anyway, he was always chanting, obviously. So he was arrested by the Qazi, some sheriff, and he was a Muslim, and they knew that he had been a Muslim and he converted, because they were converting so many Hindus into Muslim, but they didn't want any Muslim to be converted into Hindus. So that's what he said. What's the problem, Haridas? They didn't call him Haridas. I don't know what his other name was. You were born in the most exalted Muslim family, and now you're chanting the Hindus' song? What's going on? So he said, look, there's so many thousands and millions of Hindus have been made into Muslims. If one Muslim becomes a Hindu, what's the problem? That wasn't the right answer, according to the Qazi. You're speaking back to me? Okay. Show an example. And they would execute people by beating them to death, So he wasn't sentenced to be beaten in 22 marketplaces. He was sentenced to be beaten to death. But he wasn't dying. They would beat him and beat him. He wasn't even crying out in pain. 2 big guys with sticks, boom, 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 and arms getting tired, boom, boom. And he wasn't feeling any pain, and one reason was because Lord Chaitanya in a subtle form, was on his back taking the blows. He revealed that later. So anyway, after, I don't know, I forget, and I don't know if it even says how many marketplaces they went through, but he wasn't dying, he wasn't crying, and the executions were becoming terrified, because they knew that if they didn't execute him, they would be executed. So Haridas could sense that they were in great anxiety and they were, crying out. And so he said, "What's the matter?" He said, "Well, if you don't die, then we're going to get executed ourselves." "Oh, if that's the case, then I'll die." So he went into samadhi, which looks like death. If you don't know, you think he's dead. So it looked like he stopped breathing. So the guy said, "Oh, thank God." So they took Haridas's so-called, they thought it was a body, back to the Kazi. They were right on the bank of the river, I guess Ganges. And they said, "What should we do? Should we bury him here?" And they said, No, it'll become a place of pilgrimage. Just throw him in the river. Throw it in the river. So they did, and immediately came to, swam across, and kept chanting, And actually they had promised him, if you survive this, then you can do whatever you want. So when they saw him walking on the other bank and chanting, they said, "We won't bother you anymore." But you can see the incredible tolerance he had. And then it was the other side. See, this is the illustration of his advancement, because tolerance, or titikshava, is a very important aspect of bhakti. So that's the first quality of a sadhu: titikshava, karunika, and mercy, and on. So, but it's on two sides, because one side is what he showed, which is usually what you think. Someone is trying to cause you physical, mental, or emotional pain, and you're able to tolerate it without freaking out, and So that's tolerance. But the other side for a bhakta is also tolerating the allurements of sense gratification. That's another kind of tolerance has to be there. So he also showed the epitome of that. Another Muslim was envious of Haridas because he was getting all this honor, and so he hired some prostitutes to see if they could seduce him. So one young prostitute, she said, "Okay, no problem. I'll go to him in the middle of the night, and I've done it before, no problem. So we're good." So he said, "Okay, let me know what happens, So she came, and Haridas was in his kutir there, I think near Mayapur, I forget exactly where, and he was chanting. So she, she showed, she did her thing, showed her body a little bit, and everything. And Haridas got the idea, and he said, "Look, just be patient. I just have to finish my rounds, and we'll be to get together." So she said, "Okay." So he's chanting, and the sun rises. So she was disappointed, to say nothing, So she went back to the guy, I forget his name, Ramchandra Khan, I think his name. So he said, "What happened? What happened?" So she says, "Oh, he promised to be with me, but he had to, finish his sacrifice." So he said, "Well, we're going to follow you, and then we'll get him." He said, No, let me be with him one time, and then the next time you can come and arrest him, I said, "Okay." So next night she goes, and he's still chanting. So he says, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I couldn't finish last night, but I'm sure to finish tonight. So you just sit there and listen, and I'll be done soon." Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. So she's listening, and she's bored. She said, "Oh, I might as well chant too. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare." So she's becoming purified. So naturally, the whole night goes. And she says, "Oh, I'm so sorry." The next night. So the third night she comes, and by now she's getting purified. She realizes what's going on, and she offers her obeisance to Haridas. "Oh, I'm so sorry. I was sent here." And Haridas said, "I know the whole story. I knew what he was trying to do. I just stayed here to save you. So now you just chant, give your property away, and you just keep chanting. You can have this bhajan kutir. I'm leaving, And don't worry, Krishna will provide everything, So she did that, and she became a famous devotee. People would come and give her donations, like that. So Haridas showed on both sides the supreme standard of tolerance. And it all comes from getting that higher taste, feeling the presence of Krishna by this pure Krishna consciousness, and feeling his protection. That what can happen to you? The worst thing to do is kill my body, but I'll be with you, like I already am. I mean, to really feel calm in a dangerous situation is not easy, but someone who's fully Krishna conscious can show that, So I'm not sure exactly how we get off on that, and sure enough, I forgot where I was. Are we at the beginning? We shall find. Okay. We shall find, therefore, in this Bhagavad Gita that the complete whole is comprised of the Supreme Controller, the controlled living entities, the cosmic manifestation, eternal time, and karma. Here we are for the 5 subjects again, or activities. And all of these are explained in this text. All of these taken completely form the complete whole. And the complete whole is called the Supreme Absolute Truth. The complete whole and the complete absolute truth are the complete personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. All manifestations are due to his different energies. He is the complete whole. It is also explained in the Bhagavad Gita that impersonal Brahman is also subordinate to the complete Supreme Person. Brahmanohi pratishtaham. This is in the end of chapter 14. This means Brahman rests on me. I am the basis of Brahman. Brahman is more explicitly explained in the Brahma Sutra, that's the Vedanta Sutra, to be like the rays of the sunshine. The impersonal Brahman is the shining rays of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Impersonal Brahman is incomplete realization of the Absolute Whole, and so also is the conception of the Paramatma. In the 15th chapter, that's the Supersoul, in the 15th chapter, it shall be seen that the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Purushottama, is above both impersonal Brahman and the partial realization of Paramatma. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is called Satchit Ananda Vigraha. The Brahma Samhita begins in this way. Ishvarak Parama Krishna Satchit Ananda Vigraha Anadiradiya Govindach Sarvakarana Karanam. Govinda, Krishna, is the cause of all causes. He is the primal cause, and he is the very form of eternity, knowledge, and bliss. Impersonal Brahman realization is the realization of his Sat, or eternity feature. Paramatma realization is the realization of Sat Chit, eternity and knowledge. But realization of the personality of Godhead, Krishna, is realization of all the transcendental features, Sat, Chit, and Ananda, eternity, knowledge, and bliss, in complete Vigraha, or form. People with less intelligence consider the Supreme Truth to be impersonal. But he is the transcendental person, and this is confirmed in all the Vedic literatures. Nityo Nityanam Chaitanas Chaitananam, Katha Upanishad 2.2.13. That means there are so many eternal living beings, but there's just one eternal God. Nitya is singular. How do we know who's who? You know the rest of the verse? Nityo Nityanam Chaitana Eko Bahunam Hyovadadati Kaman. That one is providing all the necessities for all the other Nitya, eternal living entities. Yeah, this is one of the first verses I ever learned. Okay, as we are all individual living beings and have our individuality, the Supreme Absolute Truth is also in the ultimate person, in the ultimate issue, a person, and realization of the personality of Godhead is realization of all of the transcendental features in his complete form. The complete whole is not formless. If he were formless, this has been edited, if he were formless, or if he were less than any other thing, then he would not be the complete whole. You know the use of subjunctive? This is a subjunctive case. You use that word when it's contrary to actual fact. The complete whole must have everything within our experience and beyond our experience. Otherwise, he cannot be complete. The complete whole, the personality of Godhead, has immense potencies. Parasya Shakti Vibhadhaiva Shuyate. How Krishna is acting in different potencies is also explained in the Bhagavad Gita. This phenomenal world, or material world, in which we are placed is also complete in itself, because the 24 elements of which this material universe is a temporary manifestation, according to Sankhya philosophy, are completely adjusted to produce complete resources which are necessary for the maintenance and subsistence of this universe. Now, Prabhupada is using the word complete a lot. Did you notice? Now, this is because this section, I think he was thinking of the Ishopanishad, that Isha Vashtamidasvam Sat. No, Om Purnamadak Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachate Purnasi Purnamade Purnameva Shishate. Purna means complete. From the complete whole comes the complete units, and he means complete. And in the purport, Prabhupada keeps using the word complete. It's the complete purport. And so he's quoting there. It is complete. Is complete. We realize the complete, also incomplete is experience. All Vedic knowledge is infallible, and the Hindus accept Vedic knowledge to be complete and infallible. He's still with the complete. For example, cow dung is the stool of an animal. And according to Smriti, or Vedic injunction, if one touches the stool of an animal, he has to take a bath to purify himself. But in the Vedic scriptures, cow dung is considered to be a purifying agent. One might consider this to be contradictory, but it is accepted because it is Vedic injunction. And indeed, by accepting this, one will not commit a mistake. Subsequently, it has been proved by modern science that cow dung contains all antiseptic properties. So Vedic knowledge is complete because it is above all doubts and mistakes. And the Bhagavad Gita is the essence of all Vedic knowledge. Vedic knowledge is not a question of research. Our research work is imperfect because we are researching things with imperfect senses. We have to accept perfect knowledge which comes down, as is stated in the Bhagavad Gita, by the parampara or disciplic succession. We have to receive knowledge from the proper source in disciplic succession, beginning with the Supreme Spiritual Master, the Lord Himself, and handed down to a succession of spiritual masters. Arjuna, the student who took lessons from Lord Sri Krishna, accepts everything that he says without contradicting him. One is not allowed to accept one portion of the Bhagavad Gita and not another. No. We must accept the Bhagavad Gita without interpretation, without deletion, and without our own whimsical participation in the matter. The Gita should be taken as the most perfect presentation of Vedic knowledge. Vedic knowledge is received from transcendental sources, and the first words were spoken by the Lord Himself. The words spoken by the Lord are called apaurushaya, meaning that they are different from words spoken by a person of the mundane world who is infected with 4 defects. Apaurushaya more or less means superhuman. A mundaner, 1, is sure to commit mistakes, 2, is invariably illusioned, 3, has the tendency to cheat others, and 4, is limited by imperfect senses. With these 4 imperfections, one cannot deliver perfect information of all-pervading knowledge. Now, these 4, if you want to remember them, there's a certain order that I think is, I don't know, it's logical. We have imperfect senses. Who can deny it? And therefore, whatever we think we know is tainted with imperfection, right? That's why science is always ripping up the last theory and, oh, now we know that it's like this, right? Because they increased their senses. When they were able to get down into the atom with the special microscopes, what kind of microscopes is it called? Electron microscope. Then suddenly, oh my God, there's a proton and a neutron, the electron, and all this. And then they got even further. Oh my God, there's the muons and the QOns, and isn't it? It's all these subatomic particles. So now we have to tear up all the old books, and we have the new theory. So obviously, our senses are imperfect. We try to increase them, microscope, telescope, and then we think, oh, now we understand, but it's still imperfect. So imperfect senses. Therefore, we make mistakes. We come to a conclusion, but then we have to rip it up. So that's a mistake. And when the mistake becomes accepted and taught and everything, it becomes an illusion. We're deluded into thinking something is like that. And then when we teach it, these mistakes and this imperfect knowledge as the truth, we're cheating. So it starts with the imperfect senses. And the problem is our faith in them, our belief in them, not understanding. We need to find a way of knowing that it may use the senses, but it's not dependent on the perfection of the senses. And it's coming through a channel of those who are beyond these 4 defects. So imperfect senses, you make mistakes, and you keep making mistakes, and you become illusioned. It turns into a whole illusion, and then you cheat when you teach it. Now, just an editorial interlude. Illusioned. You'll find we're illusioned by the material energy, illusioned by Maya. That's grammatically actually not correct. Illusion cannot be a participle, because illusion is not a verb, you see. But illusioned is an adjective. It's entered the language, because people use the word illusioned all the time. But you can't be illusioned by something, you see. You're simply illusioned. Deluded is the word. I'm deluded by Maya's tricks. I'm deluded by this, deluded by that. See, so Just a little editorial note. All right, guess what? I've completely lost my place. Oh, second paragraph. Vedic knowledge is not imparted by such defective living entities. It was imparted unto the heart of Brahma, the first created living being, and Brahma in his turn disseminated this knowledge to his sons and disciples, as he originally received it from the Lord. The Lord is Purnam, all perfect, and there is no possibility of his becoming subjected to the laws of material nature. One should therefore be intelligent enough to know that the Lord is the only proprietor of everything in the universe, and that he is the original creator, the creator of Brahma. In the 11th chapter, the Lord is addressed as Prapitamaha, because Brahma is addressed as Pitamaha, the grandfather. And he, Krishna, is the creator of the grandfather, so no one should claim to be the proprietor of anything. One should accept only things set aside for him by the Lord as his quota for his maintenance. This is right out of the Isha Upanishad. You hear that? Isha Vashabhidam Sarvam. There are many examples given of how we are to utilize those things which are set aside for us by the Lord. This is also explained in the Bhagavad Gita. In the beginning, Arjuna decided that he should not fight in the battle of Kurukshetra. This was his own decision. Arjuna told the Lord that it was not possible for him to enjoy the kingdom after killing his own kinsman. This decision was based on the body, because he was thinking that the body was himself, and that his bodily relations or expansions were his brothers, nephews, brothers-in-law, grandfathers, and so on. Therefore, he wanted to satisfy his bodily demands. The Bhagavad Gita was spoken by the Lord just to change this view, and at the end Arjuna decides to fight under the directions of the Lord when he says, Karishye vachanam tava, I shall act according to your word. All right, one more editorial interlude, because I want to run this by you. So as we go, we're going to study this second chapter pretty soon. And at the end of the second chapter, which is titled Contents of the Gita Summarized, you'll find this verse number 71. 71 on page 135. You see that? And this is how one can attain peace. Vihaya kama niksarvan pumang chadadi nikspraha. Nirmamo nadahankara sashanti madigachiti. A person who has given up all desires for sense gratification, vihaya kaman, and who lives free from desires, who has given up all sense of proprietorship, nirmamo, and is devoid of false ego, nidahankara, he alone can attain real peace. Okay, so now the theme here, very important, is desirelessness. So Prabhupada begins, to become desireless means not to desire anything for sense gratification. In other words, desire for becoming Krishna conscious is actual desirelessness. To understand one's actual position as the eternal servitor of Krishna without falsely claiming this material body to be oneself and without falsely claiming proprietorship over anything in the world is the perfect stage of Krishna consciousness. Now this is very similar to what we just read in the introduction. One who is situated in this perfect stage knows that because Krishna is the proprietor of everything, everything must be used for the satisfaction of Krishna. Now, this next sentence is misleading, because the way it's worded. Arjuna wanted to satisfy his own senses by not fighting. Ah, is that what you read? Is that you see there? Yeah. You have something. Read what you have. Yeah. Now, you see the difference there? Arjuna did not want to fight for his own sense satisfaction. Well, that sounds like what happened after he heard the Bhagavad Gita. He didn't want to fight for his own sense satisfaction. He wanted to fight for Krishna's sense satisfaction. So it makes sense, but it's out of order, because this is now everything must be used for the satisfaction of Krishna. So this is the way it's supposed to be, as you have it. Actually, what it should say is, at first, Arjuna wanted to satisfy his own senses by not fighting. Now, do you see the problem? There's a real trickiness with not, the word not in English. And I gave an example. I made this whole argument of trying to convince the ERP, the editorial review panel, but they're sticking to their guns that, no, just what Prabhupada said. Arjuna did not want to fight for his own sense satisfaction. He didn't want to fight. Why didn't he want to fight? for his own sense gratification. You see? So at first, Arjuna wanted to satisfy his own senses by not fighting. You see? Right? Right? Makes sense. Maybe you can write a letter. Like you have friends of the court or something, you know. Anyway.
We concur.
And the funny thing is, you know, you go back just to text 39, and I did research through the database, and there's other, Prabhupada says almost exactly the same thing. But in the text 39, it's very clear. Arjuna's proposal not to fight, this is in the purport, like right near the beginning, fourth line. Arjuna's, page 105, Arjuna's proposal not to fight was based on sense gratification. Forgetting his prime duty, he wanted to cease fighting because he thought that by not killing his relatives and kinsmen, he would be happier than by enjoying the kingdom after conquering his cousins and brothers. So it's very clear there, right? All right. We'll see if I can convince them. All right. One. Where were we? Oh, we have to be. Oh, in this world. Okay. All right. We'll do this paragraph, then we'll do a little poem. In this world, men are not meant for quarreling like cats and dogs. Men must be intelligent to realize the importance of human life and refuse to act like ordinary animals. A human being should realize the aim of his life, and this direction is given in all Vedic literatures. And the essence is given in the Bhagavad Gita. Vedic literature is meant for human beings, not for animals. Animals can kill other living animals, and there's no question of sin on their part. But if a man kills an animal for the satisfaction of his uncontrolled taste, or tongue, he must be responsible for breaking the laws of nature. In the Bhagavad Gita, it is clearly explained that there are three kinds of activities according to the different modes of nature: the activities of goodness, of passion, and of ignorance. Similarly, there are three kinds of eatables also: eatables in goodness, passion, and ignorance. All of this is clearly described, and if we properly utilize the instructions of the Bhagavad Gita, then our whole life will become purified, and ultimately we will be able to reach the destination which is beyond this material sky. Yad-gadvana davartante tad-dhamma padamang mama. Okay. Now, is there a request? Any poem that you'd like to hear? How about Indranila? Haven't heard that in a while. All right, we'll try to do that one, but I don't know if I can get through the whole thing. Maybe I'll just do one Sanskrit and the rest English. All right, tomorrow was second paragraph, page 15, right? Okay. Inna nila mani mandula varna, pullani pakusamanchatakarna, Krishna labara kṣora sihari, sundaro jayati kunja bihari. His smooth complexion conquers sapphire, stunning to the eye. Kadamba blooms with fragrance full on each ear gently lie. His beauty's great, and by his chest a Gunja necklace stays. All glories to the Lord who in Vrindavan's forest plays. Radhika vadana chandra chakora, sarva ballava vaduta tichora, chacharicha to the tanchita chari charuto, jayat kunja bihari, jayat kunja bihari. Chakora longing for the moon of Radha's radiant face, a thief purloining patience from the cowherd's wives apace. His expert rhythmic dancing winning all the gopis' praise. All glories to the Lord who in Vrindavan's forest plays. Sarvatak patilakaula kapava, Twangsanena ritabasa bhagava, Koshta rakshana kategididhadi lilaya. Jayati kunja bihari, Jayati kunja bihari, Jayati kunja 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 bihari. When Indra's sacrifice he stopped, he stole the Deva's pride. By playfully uplifting Giri Govardhan to hide his friends and cows beneath the hill for 7 nights and days. All glories to the Lord who in Vrindavan forest played. I know this one. No. I sing this all the time. Anyway, I'll do the English. Heartwarming, warbling melodies adorn his flute which sings of Cupid's fest, to him unending happiness it brings. The parrot pairs his loving pastimes, never tire to praise. All glories to the Lord who in Vrindavan for his plays. Shat kumbha duchihadu dukula, kṣetra-jña gavirajita chula, nabhyo manana sanvajanari ranjano, jayat kunj bihari. His glistening silken garments steal the glow by gold possessed. His crown of perfect peacock plumes defeats all other crests. Vrindavan radiant girls rejoice to see his loving ways. All glories to the Lord who in Vrindavan for his plays. And Stasaki Ukatosugandhi Patira, Swanakati Padisho Bikatira, Radiko Natabayo Nadavari Kundaro, Jayat Kund Bihari. Most fragrant sandal paste anoints his limbs of bluish hue. A splendid golden belt adorns his waist, he's likened to an elephant bound by the ropes of Radha's winning ways. All glories to the Lord who in Vrindavan for his plays. Godadata tilakodra labhala, Kedi chanchalita chambakamala, Adnikanda the Grihesha Bisari, Sumbravam, Jayati Kunja Bihari. His forehead glows with golden tilak skillfully applied. His playful pastimes swing his champak garland side to side. He meets the gorgeous gopis for their rendezvous in caves. All glories to the Lord who in Vrindavan for his plays. Vibhramocha Dugantana Nritya, Chipta Gopa Lalanaka Dakwicha, Prema Matta Vishabhanu Kumari Nagaro, Jayat Kunja Bihari. Their work ignored, the coward's wives are nearly paralyzed when dancing glances strike them from the corners of his eyes. Ecstatic hero setting love-mad Radha's heart ablaze. All glories to the Lord who in Vrindavan for his plays. He ashtakam madhura kundi bihari, kridiya patatiya kilahari, sapriyati bilasatpadabhagam, tasyapada kamalarchana ragam. The pastimes that the Lord enjoys in Braja's sylvan bowers enhance this octave's beauty and pour forth pure nectar showers. Whoever hears these verses soon acquires saintly traits and serves his luscious lotus feet with love that ne'er abates. Go Premanandi, Hari Hari Bol. Okay, time for